Hello friends, welcome back to another session with me Sanyukta Saxena, Certified Zentangle teacher. Today's session we'll be learning another Zentangle original. The pattern is called Tortuca. Looks somewhat similar to the pattern we have already learned, that is printums, but the arrangement is different. Acts as an excellent filler tangle and can be used as a standalone tangle also. So let us first learn how to draw the basic pattern Tortuca, and then we shall draw a tile together with the pattern Tortuca and a few more tangles to go along, just as we do in all other sessions, right? So let us first learn to draw the pattern. The pattern is very simple to draw. We already know how to draw the pattern printums. So generally the pattern is drawn in a square grid. So I'm going to be drawing a square grid here like this. So you can always add a curve to the lines. For example, you can also draw something like this as long as you draw squares inside, right? So the lines can be curvy. And then I'm going to draw this pattern printums, but a little spaced out one like this, right? So you can draw it clockwise, you can draw it anti-clockwise, entirely up to you. Generally it is drawn all in one direction, but you can always vary the directions also. So there is no hard and fast rule as such, but the basic tangle looks something like this, right? So what I am talking about is you can keep this opening. If I go anti-clockwise, I can draw like this, right? If I want to vary the directions, I can also draw like this, right? So it is entirely up to us how we want to create a variation of the tangle. They are unlimited, but the basic pattern goes something like this, right? So if you want to draw the printums as it is originally, because these have a slightly oval look, you can also do that. So Tortuca can be drawn like this also, right? So it's basically printums arranged in a grid. It is up to you how do you want to draw it. I have already shown you 3-4 options here, right? So you can draw it like this also, and then going back to the original, right? So that's the basic pattern Tortuca. Now how do we generally shade the pattern? If you have drawn slightly spaced out ones, for example like these, if they are not very tightly spaced, for example these ones, then you can shade under these lines like this, right? For example, add some graphite under these lines, so it looks nice. You can also add some weight to these lines to create a variation. For example, I can create a variation by adding some weight here, right? Or if you are the best thing would be to shade the tangle as a whole, because you generally use it as a filler. So it's a nice idea, whichever section you have used it, just add some graphite at the edges and then blend it, right? So it gives a nice high and low effect if you make the edges dark and let the center pop up. So the corners would recede and the Tortuga and the centers would pop up. So you can shade it like this also. One more variation you can create is to do something with these spaces. So it's up to you. You can either add a diamond here, you can add a dot here, or you can choose to completely ink it, right? So entirely up to you. How do you want to go about it? You can even add a circle here, something like this, and then ink the rest of the sections. So the possibilities are unlimited to create a variation, right? So that's the pattern Tortuca. Let us draw a tile today using this pattern. I'll show you some examples how you can use the pattern differently. This is a very old tile that I drew. This one is a diptych, and you can see the fine background is Tortuga, right, with Huggins. So this is a Tortuga background, looks nice as a filler tangle also, right? And then a few more tiles. For example, this again has Tortuga but in a different arrangement, so they are not all in the same direction. Again, this is the basic Tortuga in the center along with few more tangles to go. This is another tile where I can show you how you can arrange it like a border also, right? So just experiment, play around, and the possibilities are unlimited. So in front of me is an Apprentice size tile. This is a slightly bigger one, 4.5 inch, and I have drawn a string here, right? So this is a very famous string currently being used by one of my fellow CZTs in the Monsoon Zen India. So I'm going to ink this string. I'm using my pen here, right? And I'm going to use the center section for the Tangle Tortuca, right? So if you can see the string, this is the main string, and then there are these borders, right, attached to the string. So let me just ink it so that you can see it properly, and moreover I need to ink the string here. So I think you can see the string clearly now, right? So let us start with the pattern Tortuga here. So I'm going to add Tortuga in the center. Right. Like this. And then let us draw some, convert it into a square grid, right? So line running from this side to that side, again from here till the end, like this, like this. Yeah, right. So my grid is ready, and now I'm going to be adding these Printemps kind of shapes, slightly oval. I'm going to be drawing them as they are in the original tangle. They generally head in the same direction, like this, right? So take your time, go slow. So the blocks are bigger, the blocks are smaller. It's okay to vary the number of auras, or you can keep them uniform, entirely up to you, right? Right. So I'll show you a few more, and then I'm going to complete the entire section the same way. Right. Basically it's nothing but Printemps arranged in a certain fashion, and you can change the shape to suit, right? So So I'll go on like this. So I am finishing drawing my tortuga. I am on the last one. Right, so this is how the pattern looks like. Now the rest of the tile entirely up to us. What do we want to do? So I am going to be adding one more aura to the border. And then I'm going to switch my pen to an O1, and let us now start with the pattern jetties. Right, so I'm going to be drawing these orbs first, random, not thinking much where what. Big ones, small ones, filling up the small spaces left in between. Right, so I have drawn some orbs here, and I am going to be converting them into jetties and fill up these small little spaces left in between. So let us first draw our jetties. So we have already learned this tangle, two bands, a band running in the center, and aura. Add an aura to each side of the band. So you can always ink it and leave a highlight. That's the basic jetties. I have added orbs here, right? So let us add some variety. So I'm going to add some lines here. Right, another one, drawing a band running across the orb, and then probably echoism. So you can stick to the classic. We will draw a few like that also. Right, so probably here. And we can ink it the way generally it is or usually is. Right, so I'm going to leave a highlight in between like this. Right, then moving on to the next. Again adding some orbs like this. Moving to the next. Probably a Knightsbridge here. Right, so inking alternate sections, just creating a variety of jetties here. So you can stick to one or you can vary, it's okay anyways. Right, another one here. So you can add some circles like these and one more circle inside, and then ink the rest of the section. Right, so I'm going to go on like this and do the same exercise in the other section also. So I have finished drawing jetties on both sides, and I am now in the process of inking the last section, the portion that is left in between my jetties. Right, so you can add any pattern in between, so it's entirely up to you, or you can stick to the jetties as it is basically, with the bands inked and a highlight, so it looks nice anyways. So I have inked the last section that was left in between my jetties. Right, so now with the rest of the tile, it is entirely up to you. You can leave the tile empty or you can add some pattern. So let me add the pattern flukes here. So again, we have learned this pattern already. So I am dividing the section that I have into further squares, and I'm going to introduce the pattern flukes inside it. Right, so let me pick up my pen again, because flukes will involve inking. So I'm going to draw these squares inside like these, right, and then probably change the direction like this. Then again so I hope you remember the pattern flukes, very simple grid based pattern. Again, a pattern that involves inking adds great drama to your tile. So I'm going to ink this section, and then I'm going to be adding these auras, or you can add auras and then ink the leftover section, whichever way you find it easy. Right, so I'm going to do this exercise for all. So that's the basic pattern flukes. Again, add auras, whichever way you like. You can either start with the auras and then come to the inside and ink it, or you can ink first and then add the auras. Right, so I'll continue adding the auras like this. So I am now finishing my last 4, adding these auras just the way I showed you, simply auraing the square shape that I inked. Simple pattern, adds great drama. Again, auras. Right, the third one. One, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 auras, and the final one, drawing behind, right? So finish drawing my flukes. So that's about tangling. Now let us move on to shading our tile. So I'm going to first start with my Tortuga and add shading on one side, right, like this. So another way of shading the same tangle, you can also add some veining to that side of the Tortuga if you wish to. Right, so basically I am dividing the square into half and shading one side. And not go much into the ones in the edges because I want to also add some graphite at the edges, basically darken the edges. So we'll concentrate more on these center ones, and the bigger ones, the complete ones. Right, and then some thick graphite, as I told you, at the edges here. So then I'm going to move to my jetties. I will add, you can add some graphite along the bands. I'm going to add graphite on one side. Okay, so it's entirely up to you how you want to go about shading it. So I like shading my jetties this way. Right, so again the other side, I'm going to add some graphite on one side. Right, I think we are done with that. And then on the flukes, as if the lines are going under, so it gives an overlap effect when you add graphite in this fashion. Right, so let us now start blending. So I'm now going to blend the Tortuga first, the graphite that I've added on one side. So don't blend too much, make sure you have white sections and everything doesn't go gray. Right, so one of the ways, there can be so many ways to go about shading depending on which section you want to highlight. Right, so now going to blend the edges. And then moving on to our jetties. Pulling the graphite towards the center. Right, so moving to the other side. No need to add graphite on the end sections. That gives that nice shadow effect when you know. So the jetty is almost popping out. Now moving on to our last, that is flukes. So just blend from two sides. Right. A very simple tangle. As you add shading, they look like overlaps. That's the beauty of this tangle. So try out different ways of using this Tangle Tortuca. As I showed you, you can use it as a filler or you can use it as a standalone, whichever way you wish to. Right, so nice line, high and low effect with shading this way. If you want, you can add some chalk, right? So you can add it here, although I don't see much need, but you can. And you can also add some Tortuca in the center on the other side of the shade, right? So if you just want to highlight two of the rows, pick up two center rows and then just add some chalk on the other side. Of the graphite. So don't overdo, because you don't want entire thing gray. Just a touch of chalk. To highlight. Yeah, that's about it. So that's our tile for today using the pattern Tortuca. A small thing, if you wish to do and you don't like these grids looking so permanent, then just to soften the look of the grid, you can, I always do it, just add the small orbs in between and the look of the grid softens a little bit. So although it is drawn in that grid, but we don't want the grid to be very prominent, then we can add a small embellishment like these orbs, and it adds to the look of the pattern also, but entirely optional. As I told you, there are different options. You can add something else also, right? Since you have these star kind of shapes formed in between, so you can play around. So just let your imagination flow and experiment, right? So I think that's about it. We are done. So I'm going to close my tile here. So let me use one of my jetties for my initial, right? and then sign and date it. And we shall meet again with another Zentangle original pattern. Till then, have a good time, stay safe, do subscribe to my channel, do follow me on Facebook and Instagram by the name Sanyukta.Saxena, my YouTube channel and my Facebook page by the same name Sanyukta Zentangle. So stay safe, bye bye, take care.